Welcome, everybody, to the Radicalized podcast, where we dig deep to reach high. And of course, as always, progress through action. I am your co-host, Ron Baxter.
And I'm your co-host, Ram Sandoval. How y'all doing?
Welcome to our Sunday episode, where we go over all things political news, pop culture, things that we need to talk about, things we want to get off our chest as we try to look into what this next iteration of the Radicalized podcast looks like. We want to kind of switch it up, give y'all something different, maybe more topical, maybe more headline driven on the weekends. So yeah.
Yes, it is. This is what we're considering season 2. Technically, it's episode 58.
As you know, that's a good round number to restart a season. Like 57 episodes. We all know 57 episodes is one season. And then 58.
Well, yeah. Well, it feels like we're going into silly season. So of America, the project known as America. So we are headed into the next phase. I don't know how else to put it, but it kind of feels like the message or the purpose of a lot of things, not just this podcast and how we the people move through this world and through this country is different. It's heavy. So, I think one of the things to talk about in this episode, or some of the things we'll talk about in this episode, is, really confronting the enemy inside your home, and say enemy loosely, but, this comes from experience, but I've multiple experiences, but most recently, going out canvassing. And the woman I'm canvassing with is like, after we were talking for a while, and she's like, so my husband is a Trump voter. I said, well, I didn't, I didn't know what to say at the time, other than, you kind of gotta
be
confront
better.
that. Yeah. Right. So, but I have a lot of thoughts now. So, protest in your bedroom, not the streets. And, I think one of the biggest wild cards going into this era is AI, surveillance, social media.
It gets me sometimes.
Look, I'm immersed in it. I'm still like, I know it's the gift and the curse, and it probably will end up being the bigger curse. But I think just how people interact with it, like I know myself, like the dangers and the pitfalls, and I know how to, so to speak, to a degree, I know how to interact with it. But my fear is that a lot of people don't, especially as we start to see, deep fakes and, disinformation campaigns powered by AI. I've been saying for, a couple of years now that I thought that disinformation and misinformation, deep fakes, was one of the biggest threats to just cybersecurity in general. If you can imagine that sparking an entire conflict based off of that, and what people just see and believe, what looks real is no longer real. So trying to adjust and think about how we're supposed to move with that in the equation. We'll talk a little bit about what's next, and we're going into No King's Day on October 18th. Well, what is the big picture? I think one of the biggest things that could come out of that is a national strike, a general strike. Do I think it's going to happen out of that? I don't know. I think coinciding with the government shutdown, it's very well a possibility. It might be one of the only chances that we get. So yeah, we talk a lot about current events, and I think even on Thursday we didn't talk too much about current events, and I don't know if we'll get to it tonight. There's so much going on, but
folks, we can't cover it all. Like I thought about that earlier today. I'm like, damn, we didn't cover this. And it's like, what, our show is going to be what we talking about. Like I wish we could get to everything, but we cannot. And Ron made a really good point. Like we want to get to everything, but we have a very limited amount of time. We're trying to get our shows to be a little bit more concise, within like the 90-minute window. So just stick with us, but we're trying. And if we don't get to it, Shoot us a note. We'll try to do a response via email or DM. But yes, we definitely know what's happening around us, but also our show has a very clear perspective of kind of who we want our audience to be, who we are as individuals, and the message that we want to get out as well.
Yeah, and Perrin and I met up, and we've talked about other ways to create content and give the news and like 10-minute updates and stuff. So ideas are cool, but thanks to the donation, we were able to upgrade to this restream.
Hey,
You can see stuff like this. You go to our website, radicalroots.us, donate there. Please like, subscribe, follow, share, at least with 5 of your friends. Instagram, Threads, and YouTube, and TikTok. All right, so let's get into it.
Let's get into it. What's the first topic of the day?
I mean, I have a hard time understanding how people go home and they have like ardent Trump supporters in their house. At this point, I feel like it's a difference in morals. I could not do that. On the flip, my wife could not do, if I was like MAGA, could not do that. At this point, you're pretty much a fascist. You're a hateful person. Like, you are cheerleading for everything that's going on. Like, if you're supporting Trump, and so like to have that type of energy in my house and then make an excuse to say fiscal conservatism is like, it doesn't even make sense anymore. Like, what fiscal conservatism? And like, what does that even mean to somebody, right? Because like, well, what is it? How does it serve you for the America to be fiscally conservative?
Correct. Yes, correct. I thought you were going on. I was like,
yeah,
it's
rhetorical, but like,
yeah, no, I was sitting there. I was so enamored by what you were saying. I'm like, go off, King, because that's exactly what we deal with. In our current political situation, where yes, and I think we talked about this last episode, but I have been on it since I've been the chair of the Democratic Party of Union County. We cannot erase Black people, right? So even right there where you said, like, I don't, people are doing this, it is centering whiteness. It is saying that the only people are white people, because white people have a MAGA husband. White people, not, does this mean, is there some Black out of this MAGA? Sure. But what we're saying is the numbers don't back that up. The people that actively get up, vote for, not saying they're knocking doors and campaigning and phone begging for, are white people predominantly. So we got to be honest here. The people that we're talking to are these white moderates, white liberals, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, they still subscribe to this myth of whiteness. And if they aren't willing to do that work internally, because one thing whiteness does give them, it gives them the ability to be an individual, to say, well, not me. I knocked doors for Kamala Harris. I voted for Kamala Harris. That's where the end of it all. And that's the work. That is not the work, my friends. I just want to be very clear about that, because we're at a moment where I think a lot of people are afraid. They're afraid. One, because they don't have the historical backbone or the historical runway to know what's going on. And we do, because we've survived it. Our ancestors survived it. We talked about last episode that playbooks around us. But the hardest fight you're going to have is within yourself. And then the second hardest fight, like once you've self-actualized and started to understand who you are, what your politics is rooted in, if you have a politics of liberation, a politics of justice, a politics of truth, you can move forward because you've seen yourself good, bad, and ugly. The next step is, I think, are you eating something?
No, can you hear me like clacking or something?
It sounds like, so you're opening like a Werther's original or something. I don't know what's going on over there. But the next step is then trying to change your household. And again, this is not like households. So I just want to be very honest here. It's not this Black folks. I don't have this problem. I'm wearing my Support Black Colleges sweatshirt to represent North Carolina A&T's homecoming. That was just this past weekend. This is not a Black people problem. We don't know what that's like. But what we're requiring people to do in this moment, if they're going to consider themselves accomplices, because we don't need allies, we need accomplices, is to do what's hard. is to do what's courageous. What's courageous is facing sometimes your husband. Because let's be honest, we're predominantly talking about white women who have MAGA husbands. It's very rare you have this liberal white man whose wife is a staunch regressive. Remember, we don't call them conservatives on this show. We call them regressives because the opposite of progress is regress, and the opposite of progress is not conservatism. So let's not do the work for them. So it's very rare you'll have a white man who's super progressive and then have a very regressive wife, right? Because remember, the Republican Party is predominantly filled with white men. So we have to understand that's the target. So if you do have a husband or a wife, whatever, a son, a grandfather, a neighbor, a boss, I go through this almost every episode. It is time to start having the hard conversations. It's time. We said this last episode, Black folks can't do no more. We can't do no more. It is time for you to sacrifice. And the thing about community is community requires sacrifice, right? Like even if like, for example, like Rom, he just said earlier, me and him grabbed lunch, last week. To be in community with Rom, I have to sacrifice whatever I was doing at that time. If I was like, okay, I'm chilling with my kids and I don't want to, I want, everybody wants the village, but no one wants to be a villager. I don't want to go change my schedule to go hang out with this person or to go sit with this person, to go learn from this person. It's time for you to sacrifice and the thing what you're sacrificing is your comfort. And that's one thing that this country has always allowed for white people to have is their individualism and their individualistic nature is that they can be comfortable. But things are quickly becoming less and less comfortable in this society. With people being snatched off the streets, you're getting Jim Comey and Letitia James being indicted. It's time. It's time to have that conversation. Honey, we can't do this. Take the MAGA hat off. I can't allow it. No, it's sickening. You are a racist. I'm unlearning my own racism as a white woman. It's time for you to start to unlearn that too. It's killing you. It's giving us nothing as a family. It's giving the country nothing. I've realized as I look back on the past few years, honey, and we've been triple Trumpers, is that, or you've been a triple Trumper, or Grandpa, you've been a triple Trumper, whoever you're talking to, is that all they want to do is take away. They promise us the land of milk and honey, but when they get into power, all they do is take away rights, take away resources, take away bodily autonomy, take away safety, take away people being able to be within their own skin, taking away people's education, taking away books, taking away medicine. Maybe we're on the wrong side of history here, and that's okay. I'm going to own that because I'm an adult, honey, and I don't want to move forward like that. Will you please join me in that? And if he's sitting there and he's, oh, you sound like a liberal, you need to understand you are with a Confederate at that point. You are with a Nazi at that point. That's the level of brainwashing they're at. Go ahead, Ron. Sorry. I can't hear you, bud.
Yep, I'm sorry. I was clacking, so I muted. I would say it has to be insulting to your intelligence if your significant other is telling you that it's because of fiscal conservatism. Like that, to me, that's just bullshit. Like that's what they're hiding behind. So, I feel like you would be allowing that level of disrespect. I just couldn't do it. But besides just the Trump stuff, there's been a lot of violent shootings in America. I mean, I guess unfortunately, I guess we're used to it. We, as in the collective American society. I don't think I'll ever get used to it, but there's been they're usually a shooter, I think, between the ages of 18 to 22. A majority of the mass shooting, random shooting style. The killer of Charlie Kirk, was like 22 years old. They're white men. They're always men. Period. The shooters always men. Mass shooters usually not like age. I don't even know what the statistic is, but overwhelmingly white men, 18 to 22. And so I asked the question, like, what is going on in these households, right? So, if you have kids who, I remember when we talked about Gavin Newsom, right after when he started going on his like podcast, and I think he started a podcast and he had on uh, Charlie Kirk, and you and I said, well, and he said, oh, my teenager listens to Charlie Kirk, and we said, well, that's a fail. Like, why is your son listening to Charlie Kirk, right? And presumably he's listening because he's a fan. But there's something, and no one wants to address it. Like, what is going on? Like, that is causing these young adult men, and sometimes even teenagers, to go out and shoot up a church that just people just prayed with you because they're black, right? Why do you cause you go up into a grocery store to kill people because they're black, or to kill people because they're Mexican American? What causes somebody to go and shoot Charlie Kirk in the neck, right?
And one more, and also in my hometown, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Tree of Life Synagogue.
Yeah, and there's I think there's two types of violence in America, two types of gun violence, two predominantly types of gun violence in America when it comes to young men. So there's the mass shootings, those that really, it's like, I don't know, and then you go and talk about shootings in cities like Chicago that do affect black kids and do affect black families, and I feel like, and I'm not making an excuse for that, but I feel like that a lot of those kids have been lost in society. They've been neglected in these communities. They suffer trauma, PTSD. They see their friends, family, or even just the neighborhood, and they're penalized for it. And so when the time you're older, start getting to a high school level, I feel like they've already been given up on. And when your opportunity looks bleak, right? There's not a lot of economic opportunity. There's not a lot of upward mobility. You don't necessarily see people every day. You go outside and you see, the CEO, or you go outside and you see, a teacher. You go outside and see all these people. Like, it's harder to see that in being a viable path for young kids, and they turn to something that's opportunity. Here's how you can make money, or here's your community of gangs, right? We'll bring you in, and you lose that influence. I feel like there's I wouldn't say I don't want to say a reason, but I feel like we know how we can tackle that. Like, some of the things that they do in Chicago, for example, to reduce crime, to help bring economic development, to actually not just police and over police is the answer, right? Meanwhile, in white America, and these young adults, like, I literally can't tell you what the hell's going on, but something's going on, right? Whether they're turning on to Charlie Kirk, they're listening to Groypers and Nick Fuentes and Nazis and all this crazy shit. And so look, I hate it all. I hate it all. I would love to find a solution to it all, but most people in America, I wouldn't say most people, but a lot of people in America do not really come into these conversations with any kind of seriousness. So
Yeah, I think you made a really good analysis of identifying the groups of kind of gun violence. I think that the underlying connective tissue of it all is the things that I like to get into, right? Is the systemic problems, right? Because you talked about the trauma, you talked about the not being accepted, you talked about the not having the ability to have jobs, you talked about the lack of economic development and economic, all those things. So if we're serious about this conversation, we have to say that a lot of countries have that.
mm-hmm.
A lot of countries worse off than America have that. A lot of countries that don't have the largesse and the prominence that America has. Now they have things like gang violence, right? I mean, let's use Haiti, for example. But we know those guns are literally trafficked into Haiti through the port of Miami, right? That has been shown multiple times that the guns go just like into Mexico. This is why Claudia Scheinbaum sued America recently, because the guns are coming one way, right? So to go back to your initial point of the kids that are disaffected, and the harsh economic conditions and the lack of job opportunity and education, we have to look at who does it benefit to have all these shootings. It benefits the gun lobby. It benefits the healthcare lobby, because you got to get yourself patched up, or you got to pay for it. It benefits the funeral service lobby, which is, I mean, not a lobby, but there is a large contingent of people that are usually right wing that own. I don't know if you noticed, there's I forget the name of the right wing group, but they're buying up a bunch of local funeral homes because they know that they're going to make money on death. So I go back to like.
So what you're saying is it's a problem that they don't want to solve.
Absolutely. And on top of that, it's a very lucrative problem for a very few. There is a lot of damage that happens to the masses. Even if I'm never shot in a mass shooting, I now, since I lived in America for 39 years, I walk around with psychological damage. I walk around with emotional damage. I walk around with spiritual damage. I don't really hold on to things as it relates to being in. I mean, I'm sure we've all been out into, we're in the Charlotte area. You've been to, something going on in uptown Charlotte, and in the back of your mind, for a split second, you're like, someone can just pop off right now, and everybody's going to start like that. Sort of living in a society like that does something to you. So to your broader point of the two types of buckets, yes, one is conditional on the lack of care for the body politic that exists in this country, right? The populace, the everybody that wakes up here, that was born here, that lives here, that moved here. There's a lack of care there from a governmental standpoint. But then you get into the mass shooting. Now that is a very, very, very uniquely American situation. And if we are not framing it that way, because we should be shocked by it, we should be shocked by every mass shooting because it's a loss of life, but we should be shocked that there is this lack of care to allow this to happen. And I will go back to our first, to the point that we're in about the inside your home, is that we really need white people to care. Now, why do I say white people? Why do I make it, oh my God, these people that believe themselves to be white? Hey, Ron, stop making it about race. Listen to me, folks. No, relax. Unwind your britches. Unwind your bloomers. The reason I say this, because mathematically, I do this every few episodes, but let me remind you, if this is your first episode, the portion of the entire electorate that is the white vote is 71%. I'm going to break it down to you just to prove to you how systemically lopsided and asymmetrical and over-indexed the white percentage of. So just talk about structural racism. Just look at our electoral process. White people make up 60% of the American population, but their voting percentage is 71% of the entire electorate. Okay, so black people, we make up, according to Charlie Kirk, as he always good, 13%, 50%. That was his famous racist line: 13% of the population, 50% of the crimes. He was right that we're about 13, 14% of the population, right? Structurally, we are only 11% of the electorate. That's from far left Peyron Baxter to Herschel Walker. We're all within, and Mark Robinson. We're all in that 11%. So to move the chains for something like legislative reform as it relates to guns and gun safety laws, we need white people, or people that believe themselves to be white, to care. That's what we need. But unfortunately, in this system, for so long, gun deaths have been just kind of wrapped up to boys being boys, white boys being boys, and then gun violence has been racialized to mean black. So as long as we talk about gun violence, Just like Charlie Kirk's famous last words, are you talking about gangs? Pow. That means that anytime we're talking about gun violence in the white brain, even the most liberal and progressive, they're still thinking about Chicago, like you had. They're still thinking about some place they've never been to, some place they're too afraid to go to. And that's why they're unwilling to move the chains on that. Because if the Republicans didn't have fear, separation, and degradation to run on, they wouldn't have any voters. So we have to be honest about, like, we do need white people to care. People that believe themselves to be white, we need y'all to care more. But unfortunately, as I said at the beginning of this episode, what you were afforded to become a white citizen of this country is to be an individual. To say, well, I don't shoot up places, so I don't care. I don't see the through line that 98% of mass shooters are white males. I choose to not, even though white women are birthing these people, they're marrying these people, they're raising these people. They are literally birthing the threat to themselves and their grandchildren. But if you have the lack of connection to community, then you're not going to care. Again, when I love when people say Chicago, and I love Chicago's for examples I'm about to give. Chicago, these people, it's a hellscape. It's crime ridden, blah blah blah. Nobody wants law and order as much as Black people, specifically in places like Chicago. They have something called violence intervention programs that have been going on for years before Mayor Brandon Johnson. Now, he amplified that, provided more subsidies to help raise that up to make sure. And the crime was it the lowest in 40 years, right? Something crazy. I mean, but if you got the Joe Scarboroughs in your ear, you got the James Carvilles in your ear, you got the Mike Johnsons in your ear, you got these people that see Black people as inherently violent criminals just by the sheer fact that your skin is the crime, that you're never going to get to the root of the problem, which is your people commit these atrocities. They have manifestos. They say, I was inspired by Donald Trump. Never forget the El Paso shooter in Texas went to the Walmart that had the highest amount of Latino and Hispanic people that shopped there and chose that one. Similarly, my hometown, as I brought up earlier, at Tree of Life Synagogue, where my mom, in the Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh, my mom used to walk past that synagogue every day as a little girl. The white man that shot that synagogue up said he was inspired to do that. I'm paraphrasing here, because Donald Trump said the Jews are bringing in Latino people to replace me. So even when it's white on white crime, like the Tree of Life Synagogue, it's still rooted in racism and in a radicalization through a political apparatus that says they are coming after you. And we need white people to care about that, because do you see how those bullets tore up those Jewish people at Tree of Life Synagogue and killed, I think, 19 people, I think? That's what we have to understand, how all this stuff's connected. You're on mute. We're working at it, folks. We're getting there.
I was trying to share the screen. Give me a minute here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, but this is the Tree of Life. Tree of Life. And to your point, yeah, he said he wanted all Jews to die. Jews were committing genocide to his people. And then, all of these, I mean, look, I can go through them all, and I mean, not all of them, but as of recent, they're going through church, they're driving through churches, shooting up churches. I mean, you have a government that basically just boils it down to Democrat, like far leftists, like they're just far left extremists, just for purposes of propaganda. There, and also, the other thing, Trump defunds effective crime prevention policy. So even the things that were working in, Chicago, Baltimore, even in red cities, in Memphis and red states, and even in rural areas, right? Like he's literally defunding the police, right? And so, for effective programs, and then replacing that with a more expensive, less effective, bring in the National Guard, bring in all these federal agencies, far less effective, far more expensive, right? So the motive is not to reduce crime. So if anyone's still, trotting around that argument, like, you can't take them seriously to begin with.
And before we get off this topic, I just want to say, because I do want to keep it, let's keep moving tonight. We're working at it, folks. But my final statement on the enemy inside your house statement is, with this, and I'm going to double back on it when we get to the final topic of the No King's Day. You have to create pressure. You have to create pressure. You have to create a boundary. You have to create an ultimatum. You have to create a by this date. You have to start showing that you're not putting up with this shit. And I started listening to the I've Had It podcast with the two white ladies. I just started listening, but it's fantastic. But she grew up, the main one that we always see on the clips and going viral. God, what's her name?
I always forget.
She's awesome, but she was saying that she grew up in Oklahoma, extremely racist. She didn't grow up racist, but according to her, but she grew up an atheist. Her parents were very much like, you show respect to everybody. I don't care about the religion, the color. So she said, I grew up around these like very fervent racist people, and I would tell them, I will not put up with your racism. I will not put up with your sexism. I will not put up with your homophobia. I mean, that as a young child, according to the story she was telling, she was like maybe 13 years old. She's like I absolutely was not putting up with that shit. And now her grandparents, she says, were the racist people, but then her mother, she was able to map and copy the behavior patterns from her parents because her parents checked her grandparents. So she was able to walk to the world as a young girl with confidence, like, you're racist, and there's no place in our society for that type of conversation. There is no place in our world for this. And that's what we need from people.
Yeah, I think, and especially like, I don't know, like at what point people confront their friends or, stop being friends with these people that are, I don't know. It's hard for me to like, I don't really have that. Like, I don't have people that are like,
right,
that I have to like cut out, but it would also be easier for me. Like, I feel like I cut out those type of people from my life for reasons other than Trump, like far before, or, like, so it's just like a who these people are. It's a morality thing. It's not a difference of opinion, right? Like, racism isn't a difference of opinion. Just bigotry. If you want to argue over, I don't know, I'm not even gonna...
marginal tax policy, or like where the next school should be built. Sure, but like, should trans people exist? Or why are we letting Black people be pilots? Like, none of that is politics, and we have to stop that shit.
Yeah, and so if you as a person like lost a piece of yourself because Charlie Kirk got killed, and you want to pedal around, well he's right, or you got to put it in context. Look, you are a threat to me. You do not believe that I should be in the positions that I'm in. You do not believe that I am an equal to you. It's just not like. So again, if these people are in your home or in your circle, like, I don't know what to tell you, but there's something like, how can you go canvas and knock on a door and try to change a random person's mind if you can't even roll over in bed
and create boundaries? Correct. The real thing here is this, Ron. America is the land of the weak and the home of the cowards. That's the real junk. Like, if y'all want a different country, then fight for it then. Again, Black people are only 14% of the population. We will no longer be your cannon fodder. And if you want the land of the free and home of the brave, okay, free yourself and become brave. That's what we're saying in this moment. So all this, I can't talk to my mom, she's crazy. I can't talk to my dad, he's no one no one cares about that. But that's why in this moment, white liberals, white moderates, whatever you want to call them, they start to congeal around themselves, even though they're the minority of the people that believe like that. And they say, look, we won because we're all like-minded. And this is where the idea of an echo chamber does not serve you. Black people have never got to be in an echo chamber. When we go to work, we go into a bank, when we go into a school, when we go into any sort of institution, we understand. We have to understand. That's why we have to watch Friends and The Office and understand, like, oh, why Taylor Swift has a new album. Even though we don't listen to, we have to just know that type of stuff to know how to survive daily. You have never had to do that. It is time to get out of that bubble and understand that you have to put some shit on the line and sacrifice. If you want, again, if you want to be brave, have that courage. But it is not going to happen organically anymore. Again, America is the home of the weak and the land of the cowards. It's up to us to change that. And I say us, I mean that. Excuse me. I did it right there. It's up to white people to change that because black people have always been brave. Not having the fear to run away from a plantation, having the strength to go off and fight in wars, to know you're going to come back here, be treated like less than a person, to have the courage to be sprayed by hoses that are so strong that from 100 feet can knock the mortar off between bricks, and they had those things 50 feet from children. To be hung, shot, burned, dog sicked on, demonized constantly. We've done it. And we're still doing it because they found Trey Reed hanging from a tree in Mississippi. So please, white people, I don't want to hear about how crazy your Uncle Bob is, but you're still going to invite him over for Thanksgiving. I don't want to hear about how your husband, he's a good dad, but I just can't. Look, yeah. If you're going to say that, just don't tell it to black people.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about No Kings and trying to give people more prescriptive ideas of what they can do, because like showing up to like No Kings is like look, I assume we're talking about white, like at this point I'm like if you're listening,
it's very important I'm just saying, Ron, it's very important that we do that, because you're saying that the only real people are white people.
Yeah, but what I was gonna, but I was, you got to get me finish my thought though, but like because if you're showing up to to the No Kings protest, like that's a very comfortable setting. Like it's akin to a parade and a pep rally
for sure.
But I think it's very important that, especially now, like something has to come of that. Like, and we've had a No Kings, and what was the other one they called it?
Hands Off.
Hands Off, right? And even I go into Indivisible, which is a very white space, at least here in Charlotte.
Yeah.
And it's the same people. Like it hasn't really grown. Like, it's the same people putting in work. You see maybe a couple new people. So like, how do you convert, whether it's going into somewhere like Indivisible or, and again, I go into a canvas and she's telling me her husband's like a fiscal conservative who wanted to vote for Trump, supposedly didn't, but like,
I'll never forget.
And yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm just to your story about someone saying that. I have a canvas story. I don't know if I've ever said it on this show, but it still sticks with me that it was so like, and this is a very, in their mind, progressive, woke. I've been arrested with William Reverend Barber, type person. But we were canvassing maybe a couple years ago, and we were in a more predominantly black area of Union County, and we was walking the street. Brothers was on the stoop chilling. They weren't wealthy, so they probably didn't have nothing to do. So they were smoking some weed, whatever. And I didn't have a problem with that, because I'm like, I've never been afraid of black people. It just has never happened. But this person then goes on to say, I don't get why they get that, why they scowl at me. I'm just trying to, I'm trying to put something on their door. And then she says, and I'm just here trying to help your black ass. And Rom, it struck me like, how like the hairs in the back of your neck stand up, and you're like, what the fuck? Look at this guy. But like in her mind, like I'm more progressive than you are, type shit, and like that type of shit. And like this is someone that still shows up to meetings, that is very outspoken, that is very loud, that will tell another white woman that they're not progressive enough. That level of racism, that like your black ass, as if I'm doing you a favor, as if but for me you shan't exist in any sort of safety. And this is someone that still to this day. I never told them this because I just was trying to get. Let me keep walking and knocking doors. But this is the type of people that want to tell us that, hey, I can't care about that. I can't care about that. So it just, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think people. I'll try to get to the next subject, but it does.
Yeah.
I think people need to realize that, like, first off, most racists don't consider themselves racist. Like, they're not going to say I'm a racist. Like, there are a good fervent few that will, but most people won't admit it, and a lot of people don't even know it, per se. Like, and if somebody's telling you like these things and holding up the mirror and saying like, they need to be willing to listen. Like, I don't expect everyone to be perfect, but like if somebody like tells you, or you have these like deep down feelings that come out, like when when somebody like takes your parking space or something, like,
right,
it's something to think about, right? Like, so I think if people
that black ass, whoa, why is that gonna, what the hell?
Right, but like okay, but this is a good graphic, and this is one I think I've seen in the past, not necessarily the one I was looking for, but like coming into fear zone, I deny racism problem, I avoid hard questions, versus like the growth zone, when I speak out when I see racism in action, I sit with my discomfort. To your point,
that's right.
Oh man, I wish we had remember her name, but she speaks, like when she talks about it, she says, "Hey, my fellow white women, hey, da 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 da." Like, that is the type of like, I feel like throwing softballs and trying to make people comfortable at this point is like, it's futile, right?
It's not worth.
So, anyways, yeah. So, anyways,
and this question, this comment here from Trisha in the chat, where she says, if they can keep us angry at each other, the top 1% can keep pillaging. That's 100% correct. This is why capitalism requires racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, ableism, fat phobia, classism. Yeah. It requires it. Trisha, 100% spot on.
Yeah, and I think I think we have to. This is the fight we have to fight first.
Correct.
We can fight the top versus bottom, but I don't think that. I mean, a lot of people want to fight the top versus bottom and ignore.
It seems easier.
Ignore the race, but like, we tried that. Like, I think that's what, even when Bernie Sanders and AOC went on their like no oligarchy tour, right? Like,
very true.
And when it's like we're talking about the no kings, like, it's kind of that whole same concept, right? But we're not talking about like the elephant in the room of like, while we're talking about no kings, they're talking about hunting down immigrants, brown, black people in the streets, treating them like
out of Black Hawk helicopters
in Chicago,
and zip tying 3-year-olds.
And
if you feel like you can walk into society and feel like that can never happen to you, that's why you're not talking about it. You are an enemy to me.
Yeah.
So comment before we get to the next topic. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a few comments, and yeah, I think holding truth for power. When you hear something and people say something like, it's just like, even I've been in places in the past of like,
Suzanne, right?
Yeah, I've been in places in the past where it'd be like, damn, I should have spoke up, like, but yeah, I'm not just gonna, those days are gone.
Yeah, Suzanne here says, "Oh no barbecue, no Thanksgiving, no. I do keep talking to them, dual reasoning, keep my eye on them, and know what's up on the side, and speak truth and hold my boundaries." That's right, because I'm not saying physically accost these people, but they have to understand. but they got to understand that, like, when they come to tussle, with you, whether it be in a place of comfort, because one thing we know about white liberals is they want to. And someone like a Van Jones, they want to create places of comfort where comfort should not be. Like if you're talking to a racist person, the racist person should not feel comfortable if you are anti-racist, right? If you are anti-sexist, if you're pro-LGBTQ, the person that upholds the virulent perspective should not feel comfortable around you. That means you failed in your activism, even internally.
Yeah, I think what we talked about, we'll go to the next subject, but I think what we talked about, probably one of our first few episodes, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Absolutely. Like, that's the key. And that goes for everyone, but I think, so,
there's nothing more beautiful, I think, in life than being like, oh, I was wrong about that. And then you grow from it. It's okay. Your head doesn't roll off. Your fingernails don't melt, but blood doesn't shoot out your ears. You're okay. I didn't realize I was wrong for upholding that. Okay, sorry. Then you move on.
Yeah. So here's, I'm a very analytical person. I can take in data points kind of see where things are going, create hypotheses, and once you do the same thing, and you use historical reference points very often.
It's all the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. History. That's why they always say like history will repeat itself.
Like in
If
business,
you
right?
let
The
it.
history of the company, the history of the data, right?
And we talked about this regime will ultimately follow this project that you call the colonials. What do you call it? The colonial settler project called America will ultimately we're here. We're at 249 years. It's what we know today. I do not believe that we'll ever see a presidency like we saw with Joe Biden, what we would consider normal. But I think one of the biggest in differences to where we're facing today is the introduction to AI into society. So we had social media, right? Which social media proliferated in the past 20 years. That in itself has given people a community that they wouldn't necessarily find. So if I was like a bigot, or if I was, an extremist, whatever, it would be very hard for me 25 years ago to go find a community of other bigots and extremists. Whereas online, you're able to find that community through a quick search, right? I could find both of those things and join a community and, validate my whatever my beliefs, and even become quote unquote radicalized, as they would put it. But and so like that's already happened. Now we're coming up with AI, where AI can, and it was funny, I gave this subject list to you today, and Daniel Moody and Jarrett
Yates
Sexton was kind of also talked about this too. But now you have AI. AI can, if you can't find what you're looking for, just talk to AI and just have your conversation with them. And they would kind of reference this kid who I guess ChatGPT basically gave him the instructions to unalive himself, and that's what he did, which is crazy, right?
Yeah,
and so now you have deep fakes where these videos are being created, and I'm in cybersecurity, right? So like whether they're being used to pretend to be the CEO. We saw JD Vance. It looked like him humping the couch. I mean, it was a very, if I thought it was real because he likes humping couches, right? So like, yeah, I'm kidding, but obviously, but like seriously, these people, they see a video and they'll run with it. They can create a whole narrative. And I've been saying for 2 years that AI, deepfakes, misinformation, disinformation. I'll go to a cybersecurity conference and say, like, that's the biggest threat that we face. You can just imagine starting an entire conflict or even putting out something fake, and all these businesses will react, even if they're not affected directly, right? So there's all these things that are coming up on the horizon. And then you have Palantir, who also leverages AI technology, coupled with surveillance, where mass surveillance, I would assume that everything's being surveilled. Anything that electronics that's connected to the internet, just assume that you're being surveilled, right? But then they take that information, start predictive policing, start preemptive arrest. All of those things is a slippery, Minority Report. It's a slippery slope. So
the thought police.
So now there's all of this.
George Orwell's 1984.
Yeah. And I've been thinking about it. I'm like, man, like I think AI is this tool that people need to have, but I also think about, like, I don't think people necessarily, I have a perspective that's ingrained and well informed. And yes, the goal of my project is to try to have some sort of way to bring it to the masses in a way that it can be used in an effective way and ethically. And then I think about it a little bit longer, and the other part, half of me is like, shit, I don't even know if that's even feasible. So what we're coming up against, and I think I sent you a video this morning, and there was somebody talking about like all of these failures around the world are not these governmental failures is not it's by design, right? So like France, their government has collapsed like twice this year. they brought the prime minister back in, and there's energy grids going off, and they're saying, well, they want people to lose the trust of governments, whether or not it's intentional or conspiratorial. Like, I don't think it's the big topic, but those things are inevitable. And where we're going with AI and the technology that we have today, decentralized, to be able to like decentralize the government in itself. So like let AI make the decisions, decentralized autonomous organizations, look it up, DAO. That is a very real possibility. And we know where these techno oligarchs are trying to go, right? And they're trying to create AI. And then it's like, well, AI can be manipulated to do whatever, make those decisions. But somebody has to train AI and to give it its boundaries, right? So that AI is not just some like unbiased, answer to everything, right? So that's what's I can't really account for, and I think it's such a wild card that I don't think anyone's prepared for what's ahead.
100%. I will say this, I'll go in my history bag here. This is what happens when there's the emergence of any new form of technology. Got to think, when the printing press came out, who controls the printing press? Who gets to put the information onto the stamps that go onto the compressors, which hits the pieces of paper that gets in front of the people, the very few that can read? Doesn't that sound very familiar? Right? And then the introduction of the telephone or telegrams, and then telephones, and who gets to communicate with who gets to have access, right? Then you get into the internet, right? Then that is, so there's always a time of when information it creates a precarity amongst the populace, where folks are like, can we trust this? Anne Applebaum, who wrote the book The Allure of Authoritarianism, she had a book, she had a post in the Atlantic, I think in 2020, that said the bad guys are winning. The bad guys are winning. And she was talking about how the super forces of like Xi Jinping, Donald Trump's, the who is it? Bolsonaro, couldn't remember his name. Like all these types of people were starting to align, and now that's just been exacerbated with the injection of AI, right? So I will say this: I've had this phrase. I've been saying this for literally 4 years. I have it in my phone here. This statement right here, and it's this. I've been saying this. I've been copying and pasted because and this came true. So the idea was like, where's this coming from? A lot of people knew this was going to happen. But it says, we are witnessing an activation and mobilization of a transnational white Christian nationalist movement that is leveraging fascist tactics to violently install and sustain their theocratic and apartheid authoritarian rule. That wasn't specific to America. You're on mute.
Say that one more time.
Yeah. And if any of y'all have been following me for years, you've probably seen this statement from me. We are witnessing an activation and mobilization of a transnational white Christian nationalist movement that is leveraging fascist tactics to violently install and sustain their theocratic and apartheid authoritarian rule. And that I've had this in my phone, been using this for years. This has been there for a long time. So we have to understand that, again, if the crumbs are there, as if you're willing to believe it. If you're willing to understand that all of us are being used in the comic book The Watchmen, the guy that plays Dr. Manhattan or Mr. Manhattan, he says that all of us are puppets. Some of us just see the strings, and that's okay to get to that point. Like like we're not going to capitalism our way out of this. We're not going to be rich our way out of this. There's a reason why Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk are either building bunkers or trying to get to the moon. Right? It's not because things are going well. Right. It's not because things are going swimmingly here. Right. So like we have to understand that as we're trying to progress through society, there's forces that are meant to keep us back to being those human batteries, those cogs in the wheel, just for them to have power and wealth in the hands of few.
Yeah, we got a regressive in the comments saying internet's racist, books are racist, phones are racist. Do you have an intelligent thought?
I mean,
No.
probably because he's racist, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
right. So like, I don't concern myself with racism.
Hit dogs will holler.
Exactly, right. I mean, why do white people invent race? I'll wait. Okay, moving on to the next point here. So yeah, again, but and we can go on the AI track for a while, but I think we're coming down the last 30 minutes. I'm liking our segmentation, right? 30, 30, 30. So the last thing I want to get to was the or do you have anything else you want to tie up here? Sorry.
No, I just wanted to touch on that. Again, I know I can see what's happening, but it's like it's such a big technology that's
we're gonna talk about this for a while.
yeah. And in the context of mass surveillance is actually kind of crazy.
That's right. And we warned you about this. All of us pro-Palestinian people. We said what they're testing on the Palestinians, they will do to us. And
yeah,
now,
and you hear the rhetoric coming, from Scott Jennings and probably others in the right wing bubble about Chicago. It sounds the same language.
Is that right?
Very much like the language that Israel uses against Gaza. So
I just don't think that little children should be around Latino people. I don't think these motherfuckers ain't never care about black kids in their entire life. Now all of a sudden, I don't think those black kids should be around those Trinidad motherfucker don't care about no goddamn black kids. But we're sitting here acting like, oh, he's making a good point. Why are those kids are around a bunch of motherfuckers? It doesn't mean that somebody, because just the last thing I got on this. Now that we brought up Scott Jennings, or I don't know who brought it up. But like I remember a few years ago, we had a guest at the house, and we were talking about like this is years ago. They were talking about we were talking about like black on black crime. She's black. She's recently moved from California, and she said this line to me. It just stuck with me ever since. But we were talking about like the black on black crime, how it's bullshit. And she's like, yeah, I mean, we were smoking. So he's like, kind of how you get like the high mind. You're like, yeah, whoa, what, yeah. So she was like, it don't make no sense, Payron. Like, so you telling me because this motherfucker killed this motherfucker, the police can kill both of us? And it's like it doesn't make sense when it's about black on black crime whenever they bring that up to retort when we talk about state sanctioned violence. I remember one time someone was like, the police killing black people is not state sanctioned violence. I'm like, who the fuck do you think is paying the police? Who do you think is paying the police? Dude, it's our tax dollars. The state is paying for this army of slave catchers. So
yeah. So moving on, shadow government, national strike. Just kind of touching on a couple topics here. I think in a way there is somewhat of a shadow government running. The context I use it in is that, there's, for example, Oregon, California, Washington, like even the governors and mayors of these cities are, talking, working together, strategizing, even finding ways to, keep funding going for their programs, things like that. That the doctors that have been expelled or have left from the CDC, professionals in all their crafts across the government agencies are now, doing independent work. They're warning people through other mediums, right? So those things are still continuing to happen. Granted, they do not have as much funding, not as much visibility, not as much power to do things about it. However, those things will need to continue to exist. I mean, people take their craft and you can still, we're going to have to be working towards more of a community in the sense of like taking care of each other and not relying on the government. I think we've done that for so many years. So that's happening. And then the other, I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
A shadow government. I mean, no, I think I think it's really just people taking a defensive posture for the people they can impact, and I think that's okay. I wouldn't call it a shadow government. More, I call it folks fighting back against fascism. I think when going back to what we said last episode, when you have a country that is deeming anti-fascism as terrorism, that means that you have a fascist government inherently, right? It means there's people that want people like GP in our chat here to continue to do their bidding while they steal from all of us, including GP, right? So there's a certain level of ignorance that comes along with that. But again, it makes sense in society that has 54%, 54% of adults read below 6th grade level. I'm sure GP here can attest to that. But yes, with that, I think, seeing, Governor Pritzker, and I think they were on a Zoom call with Gavin Newsom, and I do forget the third person, but other governors saying like, we got to come together and we need governors to support us against this, militarization of the National Guard. And he brought up an example of when Joe Biden was president, and he wanted to use the National Guard to, he wanted to federalize the National Guard to go into, I do forget where, but all 50 governors said absolutely not. Here, again, as we have now, real life examples of like what they want to do, what they want to do in these cities and towns. He's saying like, I want other governors to have my back. But at the end of the day, when you have people that are interested in maintaining, a private police force, because that's what all this stuff is about. It's, the reason, and it's a religious fight for them. The reason why they say the wicked and the violent and the evil are the ones that ICE and the National Guard will need to tamp down on, and that the ICE and the National Guard are fighting this holy war, that they're angels, is because they're doing the bidding of who? One man, Donald Trump, right? That actually is the titular head of a white supremacist Christian nationalist movement, right? A deadly thing, right? So like that's what they don't want to. They can't say because they're cowards, right? Cowards can never tell the truth. This is why you don't have Black people lying to white folks systemically in the past before, right? So I just want folks to understand that like we need to have this idea of like, what happened to states' rights? They used to be the party of states' rights, and all of a sudden now it's like, no, we have to dominate you because whiteness is inherently the only thing it has in this culture is domination. Again, this guy GP, he's in our chat. Could you imagine if we brought him on to talk to him, and I would ask him, if you didn't have your race, what are you? Are you any good? Are you kind? He's spending his Sunday night trolling two Black people using our intellect, education, and experience to teach people, to troll us, and he would say that he's the good guy, right? This is what we're trying to understand. The crux of this: small people who need to cling on to, I'm dominating people, a masculinity rooted in domination, is why people like this are smooth-brained and easily manipulated by the Donald Trumps, the Stephen Millers of the world. And brother, I feel for you. I wish better for you, but I can't want that more than you want for yourself. So moving on, shadow government. Government needs to keep on it. Mayors are doing great. And again, we're not going to back down, because one thing about GP, I think what most racists realize, what they think, is that when they're racist to us, that we're going to be like, oh, they don't realize we deal with racist white every single day of our lives. Like, so the idea that I'm like, are you like, you're the 18th person today. Okay, because I've been born in 1986.
Yeah. So October 18th is coming up. No King's Day. I people question the effectiveness and all that. I still encourage people to get out there to do a show of force and whatever people feel comfortable. We talked about it from day one. If you don't do nothing, if you in the past have not been involved in anything, start getting your chops. Start doing something. Post a meme, for God's sake. Talk to your friend. I don't know. Listen. Read a book. Try to read about what's going on. If you were doing things like paying attention to politics and, keeping up with stuff, and maybe, jump into some canvassing, jump into some protests, jump into going to your council meetings, things like that. So just kind of trying to get people to kind of ramp up their involvement. But I think, and I'm going to publish something this week, I think pretty cool. Kind of give people more ideas of what they can do, especially the creatives. We talked about this as well, but like, I want to put it on paper. We've talked about a lot of this shit over the course of the past, 10 months. But like, giving a playbook of how you as a marketing person can be creative and use that skill set, how you as a PR person can be creative and use that skill set. All of these things, and how you can contribute, and other things we need to be doing in terms of, strategizing around our data security and encryption and how we communicate and things like that. So anyways, national strike, general strike. I think we now are 12 days into the shutdown. They're saying that
Make
the
America great
Americans are going to start to feel the effects. They have, videos playing in the airports, apparently
Yeah, pushing
blaming the
on
Democrat.
the
Like,
Democrats. Yeah, yeah, you're
I,
annoyed by Democrats. Yeah,
so I feel like
the
the type of
radical
stuff.
left.
I feel like this stuff's got to like. I mean, for some people, I'm sure knuckle draggers are cheering it on, but
Mouth
like a lot
breathers.
of people are got to be looking at this
Yes,
like
Democrats.
really like like you just like seriously you're putting this in the airport. Like how much more propaganda can
Oh,
you?
sorry, Suzanne reading Parable of the Sower. Ah,
Oh, I
fantastic
got
book.
that one
So
in my
timely,
queue.
right, Suzanne? So timely, especially with the beginning of this year. I mean, she nailed it. You got the November election to a man named Donner that we expected to win, who ran on who we didn't expect to win, who ran on Make America Great Again, the Altadena fires, the racism. Oh, fantastic book. And then you got to read the second book, Parable of the Talents, Suzanne. So hopefully come back and we keep talking about this, but this is where we grow. This is a classroom, right? And there's always a kid eating boogers like GP. So we're gonna keep going.
I actually got that in my queue on Audible, so I'm gonna have to start that one up.
Check it out.
But and I think I don't know what's going to happen with the shutdown. I honestly don't know if we ever go back to. I don't know. I'm not going to try to predict that, but the last time there was a shutdown, I think it was also Trump shutdown. The air traffic controllers started to basically protest or say that they were going to not show up, and then that kind of ended it. That was the catalyst. Even now, there's been several thousand flight delays, because they're like, well, one, it said, well, usually they get furlough pay, right? So they get back pay. They kind of have that expectation, so they keep showing up to work. But the Trump administration basically came out and said, well, we're not going to pay you. Like we might pay you.
Which
like
is
we might pay
my
you.
friend.
And so
it's
so
illegal. It's illegal because in 2019, well, I don't know who was president in 2019. Who was president, Ron?
2019, Trump. He forgets. See, I see. He forgets.
Well, in 2019,
he was president.
In 2019, they passed a law to ensure furloughed people were going to get paid. So again, as we talk about like accepting this to be reality, what is power? Power is the ability to reshape reality and get someone else to believe it. You guys, Pete Hegseth's Secretary of Defense calling himself the Secretary of War. Fool, ain't no law been paid. You're the Secretary of Defense. It's up to us to we are actively believing the bullshit they're saying that is not reality. But that's what whiteness is. That's what America is. It's propped up on lies. It was propped up on all this nonsense, the manifest destiny, and the pilgrims and Thanksgiving, all kind of bullshit. It wasn't. And the reason is because the slaves they were happy slaves and all this shit. They need all these lies. And the more you get comfortable with rejecting lies and understanding your culpability within that, the more you can walk free. So we have these people right now trying to really, I mean, they're really stuck in this moment about, well, Trump said this. Oh, Trump can say, he could sign a piece of paper right now to say that, like, black people don't exist no more. We still gonna be here, right? So we have to stop like regurgitating. We can say that the lying president, who's a 34-time felon, who was found, liable for sexual assault and said that he wanted to have sex with his daughter on television multiple times, said this. Like, give it a prefix. You know what I mean? Like, to say, hey, this dude who likes to rape and this dude who likes to, hang out with the largest, sex trafficker in American history, who's a 34-time felon, that's more felony than anybody I've ever met in my life, said this. Then you're like, oh, okay, got it. Sorry, that was a tangent, but like,
it's all good.
You're like, well, Trump said this. It's like, well, that don't mean shit. That don't mean the goddamn thing.
All right, so here, this is the he is the labor federal workers labor president. I don't know exact title, but he has some things to say this week.
Ooh, hey, what? I can't hear anything. Chat, can y'all hear this?
Oh, can you not hear it?
Chat, can y'all hear this?
Hold on, let me get it. Let me reshare then.
Shoot us a thumbs up if y'all can hear this.
Give me a second. I'll reshare. There we go. All right, that should work now.
Allow this shutdown to go on for weeks on end like it did in 2019. Now, to make matters worse for federal employees, just days ago, the Trump administration directed agencies to consider widespread firings due to this shutdown. Now, the law is very clear. This administration has no new authority to engage in mass layoffs because of a government shutdown. This means that the administration is doing one of two things. Either they intend to violate the law, okay, and when the president violates the law, he's violating the Constitution. Article 2, Section 3 says he must faithfully execute the laws of this country. So he intends to either violate the law or he was just grating, frightening, antagonizing hardworking federal employees whose only crime is caring and wanting to work for the American people. Right. It's despicable.
I'm hearing that go. Maybe not no more.
Okay. Right. Well, he goes on. Yeah.
He's right, man. I mean, but again, it's just we have to understand that, like, and I say this to my wife all the time. If you have to do all of this, we're firing everybody, we're getting rid of this, we're slashing this, no more education, troops in the streets, ICE pushing abuelas down the steps, zip tying children. If you got to do all of this, that you are not strong. You are not you don't have a strong politic that can engender people. They want peace, but at the brunt of a gun, right? You will never have peace. You will always have resistance. And they don't understand that because these are small, insecure people. And only small, insecure people support these sort of efforts because they don't want anything for themselves. They've already lost their own humanity. They said, to hell with helping out even my damn self.
Yeah.
Because let's just say, for example, I ran a business. Let's just say I ran a business. You would want customers, right? You would want customers to feel like they could use their dollars freely in a society where they are not going to be oppressed or infringed upon. You would not want any sort of harm coming to the populace because that would ultimately impact your bottom line, right? So these free market capitalist people are always full of shit because what they mean is we want to keep wealth in the hands of as few people as possible. And we don't want people to see the grace and the dignity and the integrity amongst all of us. And that is what the Trump administration is running on. And that's what these little Trumpers around town, that's what Mayor Burns here in Union County is running on. We're not doing it. Okay, so what's the point of the government? Why are you in power if you aren't doing anything? If you're just taking shit away? Shit, when you got in, it actually was meant to help people.
Well, can you imagine?
And the last thing I'll say, last thing I'll say is,
go ahead.
And then people look at like other countries like Norway and like, well, they have all these nice things because they have a very homogenized society. And until we can get past these people that believe themselves to be white, to say like, you know what, everybody deserves access to healthcare. Everybody deserves access to education. Everybody deserves access to clean water, clean food, and cheap and free medicine. Until we can get to that point, we'll never get to light rails across the country. We'll never get to high-speed internet to everybody. We'll never get to these things because we're still debating the topics from the 1950s or earlier.
So yeah, it's GP and his he wants to stick around. Anyways,
let's stop.
I was like, I don't like honestly, like
let it go. All right. So what we got next?
Who sits here and trolls?
I'm a pathetic loser, but continue
on. So yeah, that's I think I'd like the conversation again. Obviously tonight we didn't really talk too much about current events, and we will continue to talk about current events.
It's all current.
We will continue. Yeah, and we're not talking about the latest I don't know, whatever tweet or whatever's going on in executive order and stuff like that. But there's plenty of that. I think when you scroll these timelines and you scroll through, social media, that's all quickly available. But I think we're moving into an era where it's even more imperative and critical that we're being more thoughtful now, and we as a collective being more thoughtful and re-strategizing, if you will. Like, this isn't normal times, or at least normal by what we've been used to, and playing with the same playbook, it doesn't really make sense. So I think it's just important to adjust and kind of, I want to put that the food for thought out there for folks and come up with new ideas and ways that they can disrupt and interrupt and build.
Right.
Most importantly, build from the ashes that is inevitable. And think about a way that you would want. I wouldn't even call it the government. I would call it your community, or the way that you want to live in this world as a citizen of the world, a citizen of Earth. How you would imagine, like, how you would want to wake up and interact with people daily, and how you would want to teach your kids, and how you would want to receive healthcare, and how you would want to receive education, and all the little things that are at risk of going away. How do we continue to make an impact, and how do we continue to build a better world in the face of fascism? So that's all I want to say. But
yeah, but just to get to the, I know you're gonna do the rundown with Brother No King's Day, and and every time we kind of get some sort of, like, people want to, like, oh, this is, and you can tell it's really important to people that believe this is, like, going to move the chains. And I just want to go back into digging back into my history bag, is that as we look at the march of authoritarians and dictators and these wannabe dictators and these hung like a clip regime, as I like to call them, what would you like, just like, what if people want to say Trump is Hitler, and you got Steve Miller literally quoting Goebbels at Charlie Kirk's WWE funeral where his wife wasn't crying. Like, what do you think what your actions are doing at this moment would do to refute the Third Reich, right? Let's put it into historical context, or Jim Crow South, right, where the Third Reich took their notes from, according to Hitler himself, or the Confederacy, right? These moments of, or South Africa during apartheid, right? Like, what do you think going out on a Saturday, well publicized for 2 hours, is enough to stymie that regime? Is that how those things stopped? I mean, I know for slavery to end, they had to fight for 5 Aprils. They fought, and 600,000 people died. The bloodiest war on this settler colonial project's history. To stop the Nazis, there wasn't a firmly worded letter to stop the Nazis. There wasn't people standing on a sidewalk once a month on a Saturday to stop Nazism, right? We forget the second largest supporter of Nazism was right here in America, right? Within the American Bund Association. We look at just these things across time. Like, do you think what you're doing right now is enough to stop that? And that's the hard conversation people don't want to have, because they want to feel like I am doing enough, because that's the most I'm willing to do. I'm scared. I'm scared of these people. I don't have the language. I also don't have the curiosity, the insatiable curiosity to learn from people who have put out playbooks like W.B. Du Bois, like the Black Panthers, like the Rainbow Coalition, all these folks in the past that have done the work. So there's this level of, like, I'm scared, but I'm also lazy, and therefore No King's Day works for me. And I'm not trying to be rude about the day, but what I'm saying is, like, folks, you got to have demands of your government. It's not about just Donald Trump. You got to say, I pay taxes into this bitch. I wake up every day and I pay taxes into this settler colonial project known as the United States of America. This criminal enterprise known as the United States of America. With that being said, if I'm to give up the things that will sustain me, the dollars, I need this from the government.
Mm-hmm.
And most people have no demand. They don't like the aesthetic of Donald Trump. They don't like the aesthetic of J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth, getting no claps with his faux patent speech that he gave, and the generals just looked at him like he had 3 heads. They just don't like that. No, it is time to have demands. And if the reason you were not for those demands for universal health care, universal child care, access to free education from K through collegiate level, was because you also thought there was undeserving people who were going to get them. But you're a progressive, you're a liberal. You voted for Kamala Harris and would have voted for Obama a third time if you had a chance. Word to get out. Then you need to work on that shit on yourself before you're able to go out there and make any sort of change. Any sort of change.
Yeah, I think, I think, and we'll probably maybe even go out there and ask the people what are their demands from an individual, because
we did that, right?
even the Democratic Party,
doesn't
really have a platform or demands, right? Right now it's fun. Right now it's Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are saying it's about healthcare. Which is one in its valid aspect of this bigger picture. But even I just start writing down things, because I think even you saying to me like there needs to be demands in these things. I just started jotting down some thoughts I had. Obviously, like fund healthcare, pay teachers more, remove Stephen Miller. I think like that person is harmful in a lot of different ways, more than harmful. Anyways, remove Pete Hegseth, civilian oversight board for election integrity, AI regulations that protect workers, privacy of Americans, and our data. I mean, let's just get our creative juices going. Let's figure out how to actually come up with something as a people, whether it's 50-51, whatever they call it, indivisible, PSL, all these people that are going to be out there. I would love to have some
You're right. You are correct. I'm with you. But this is where I think we need to.
I know where you're going.
The people that have been doing the work for decades, centuries, forever, are the closest to understanding what it will take to shift the Overton window. And the Overton window just means what is acceptable to discuss, what's acceptable to understand. And for the past 50 years, that's why you bring up Stephen Miller and Pete Hegseth. That's almost like reducing it to as if if once they go, then that ideology goes away. And in reality, this is Project 1981, which was created once the Heritage Foundation was established as their mandate for leadership under Ronald Reagan, which was, by the time Ronald Reagan left office, that was 43% completed. So now we have the ending or the completion of that project called Project 2025, and folks are like, let's start now. So I hear all the ideas of but there's a level of until it's going to be intersectional, led by people who are closest to the pain, who they need to be closest to the power. Until we can get there, we are not going to get anywhere. And I just really need people to kind of wake up from that I don't need to listen to the indigenous people. I don't need to listen to the descendants of enslaved people. I don't need to listen to the immigrants. I don't need to listen to the women or the queer folk. I need to just start with me and my, wealthy people that live in my enclave. And that's all we need. And we will change it all. And it's it will not work that way, because you're a fish in water. And there's people who've been drowning who have been like, man, this water is drowning me. And for years, you've been like, what is water? What are you talking about? What is water? And people are like, I'm choking in the water. And you're like, what are you talking about? Water's racist.
But yes, to your point, I hear what you're saying. I know what you're saying overall, but I do. It's kind of like one of those, the multiple people. Stephen Miller has to go. Regardless, I hear what you're saying. Stephen Miller has to go. If right now, because
I like my race in my face.
Do you agree?
I love a race in my face.
do you agree?
Don't be secretive racist. Be out there, brother. Wear it on your coat. Let me know you a racist. I love me an out and out racist. Let me know, brother. Let me know.
But Trump, for example, or not as an example, but Trump is clearly on the mental decline.
Of course.
I don't know what his mental acuity is right now, but
It's a letter. It's not even a number. It's just a letter.
Stephen Miller clearly is running a lot
show.
of the show.
First it was Elon, but then
it's-
Steve Miller's wife was fucking him. So maybe he was, I don't know. Maybe he's doing some kind of lingus because I heard his dick didn't get up. So now she's back doing on the podcast scene, interviewing JD Vance and shit like that. So now he's running because Trump is just a rubber stamp. He's like, what is this now? What is this? What is this executive order? What is it called now? It's called I can't read. You read it for me. I'm gonna do my squirrel's heartbeat signature on it. My squirrel's heartbeat signature. I'm gonna do that. Is that what is this one now? Donald Trump is the best.
Are we healthy yet?
I'm the king today. Oh look, got RFK, who sounds like he's dying every time he opens his mouth. The brainworm. You know the whole brainworm thing was because he used that in his divorce proceedings. It wasn't even real. He was using that to get out of child support.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, anyways, I think let's figure this out. Not just like
we're not gonna figure it out today, folks. And we may not figure it out in our lifetime. And I think that may not feel comfortable for a lot of people who don't look like us. But as Suzanne brought up earlier, the Ta-Nehisi Coates, Ezra Klein conversation. I think this is the meetings of the immovable object and the unstoppable force of the quote unquote left in this country. Where like you got the folks like Ezra Klein who are like, we need to win. We need to fix this. We need to stop Trump. We need to get Stephen Miller out to be head. It's like, look, but some of us who are the descendants of people who toiled their whole lives and never saw the end of chattel slavery, who toiled their whole lives and never saw the end of Jim Crow, who toiled their whole lives and didn't have access to opening a credit card, like most women didn't have access until 1973, didn't have access to getting a no-fault divorce until 1973. We have to understand that like some people will not make it. It doesn't mean that while you're here on this planet, you do what you can to pass the baton to the next generation for something good, something better. And Ram got the eggs, I got the flour, Suzanne got the sugar. We, GP ain't got nothing. We got folks, but we come together and we make cookies. We make the cake, and that's what it means to be in community. And sometimes you might not even eat the cake, and that's okay too. But you tried, you did your part, and you woke up, you put one foot in front of the other, and you said, you know what? I'm going to try today. I'm going to be better today than I was yesterday. Because that's what my society, my children, and future generations who I will never meet understand.
Yep.
I love it, Suzanne. I will not quit until my last breath. I know that's goddamn right. That's right, sister. Come back, Suzanne. Tell friends we're growing this channel. This is a classroom. This is a classroom for all of us, right? So come on.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a good place to kind of wind it down. Yeah, I think.
Well, folks, thanks for listening to the Radical Cruise podcast. This was a fun one. Sundays will be we'll try to make these be the more interactive ones. Where we go over hot topics, ideas, ideology, and then of course we'll respond to y'all in the chat. And then I think Thursday we'll try to do more topical, and we'll respond to people as we can to in the chat there too. But this was very fun and very enjoyable today. So we're trying new stuff out. Thank y'all for tuning in on the Sunday evening, and if you are listening on any other day, thank you for listening to us. We always get feedback, folks who listen afterwards, so we appreciate y'all. But yes, thanks for listening to Radical Cruise. I am your co-host, Peyron Baxter.
I'm your co-host, Ram Sandoval.
And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace.